And we won't know that, unfortunately. I mean, that's the truth. It might be not what some people want to hear, but that's what we need to hear. So if we decide to rezone this project to residential, okay, then we've identified the fact that, okay, that particular component of the project will go to residential, the rest will remain commercial. If we decide, as the board, again, no matter who sits on the board, decides, no, we're not going to rezone it, we're going to leave it commercial, then the project goes forward as a commercial project, once they comply with the codes and the other regulations within the town of Boston, it goes forward as it could potentially go forward as a commercial project.
Are they gonna build 96 units on residential property or commercial property?
That would be-
Is it commercial?
Oh, residential.
That's the
Residential,
residential
you
part.
can't, right, you wouldn't be able to build apartments on the existing zone, which we've said.
Right, so it's important that everybody in this room understands.
Not currently, I mean, we would do something, but no, we've not formulated that plan.
Right, so as everybody here understands that
So yes,
if the board says no, then we don't have 96 rental units built.
under the current zoning, they could not build the rental unit.
Right.
And
But they could build the hotel, if they wanted to.
I guarantee that wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen. If he's,
I'm
it
just
just
saying.
wouldn't happen, you know that.
Yeah.
You've said more than once that it's
I
already,
can't
it's
say my
commercial right
opinion
now,
on that.
but nothing's been built there, there's been no studies. It almost sounds to me like, if we don't get
Right,
That's the
this,
business.
I'm gonna do something bad over there, you're not gonna like it, but I haven't
Yeah.
done it yet. So you better give me this. That almost sounds like,
An ultimatum.
oh, you might not know, I can build whatever I want anytime I want, it's commercial, but let's do this instead. That's all it sounds like.
I don't think the
Like a
council
veiled
is
threat.
suggesting that.
Exactly
Exactly what Mr. Gensel
I think he's just
suggested.
trying to point out the fact there was some question raised about what could be built there. And he was just trying to answer that, whether the apartments could be built there or not under the current zoning.
Right, because
The
they
answer
want
to
to
that
change
is
the zoning to build apartments.
Right.
But by it being commercial right now, I keep hearing, I've been to this is the second or third meeting, I keep hearing, well, don't forget, it's still commercial, it could always be something else, so take this, what you know, because you might put, what, some huge
truck stop.
atrocity thing, a truck stop, that's right.
I will-
Oh, you
I will
don't want a
say-
truck stop, you can have.
With hookers.
Oh, and drug dealers, that's the part I didn't hear.
Can we,
Let's
60 feet isn't wide enough.
For a truck, yeah.
Semi-truck.
Or a car dealership.
let Mr. Metzger finish.
I already built one in Greenville.
Okay, just a few other points. Sorry to take up too much of your time, but drainage, there was some concern about drainage. I just want to make sure that it's clear that, again, should the rezoning move forward and we move into the site plan phase, we would have to create plans that, a drainage system that does not increase the peak rate of runoff from the site. So that it would be, the water would be collected. We're showing several stormwater detention ponds on the site. The water would be collected in those ponds, and then it would be released at a controlled rate, so that the rate, the peak rate does not increase. Another point relative to some of the technical concerns, emergency access. Again, just want to make sure that it's clear that the plans that we have right now, it's a concept plan, but they have been prepared in a way that shows that we can comply with the most recent fire codes. The fire code was amended in October of 2016, and it made much more stringent. And we are confident that we will be able to create a plan that is compliant with that code, so that emergency access is not an issue.
I have a question, but that's not reality. You know what? What part of this is no means no. No hotel, no 96 units, period. Then go from there, period.
You're wasting our
That's
time
right,
talking to us.
stop already.
You're wasting our time talking to us. We don't need it.
You mentioned the fire code. The fire code is the existing structure. How much of that has to do with the right of way?
No, that's what it does with access.
The fire code talks about access,
Okay,
absolutely.
and then
The
why are
tendency of the fire
EMTs,
code
That's one of the biggest parts.
why is it such an issue for the EMTs and the emergency responders who don't want to have to navigate this?
I'm not sure, I can't answer that.
Well, I think the
If we
people in the
can,
field would.
They're in the field.
Yeah.
if we
There's
can,
code requirement that applies to every project you want to state, guys. We need
right.
Well, the bigger the standards.
That's in your.
There are probably areas within the town where it would not be compliant with today's, the standards in place today. What I can assure you is that what would be built, if you were, should be successful in moving forward, would be totally compliant with that standard.
And then we have one question, but it doesn't have to be now, but before you go, I have one more question.
We're not voting.
Oh, you're not, but I did have one more. So, it keeps being brought up, if the commercial, Roy can build anything, put a Walmart there, or whatever, you know. Whatever, truck stop, hotel, Walgreens. How does that work when his land is practically landlocked? When you have a 60-foot right-of-way going to, and there's no other way in, that you can't build a Walgreens back there because Walgreens won't move back there. I would bet any amount of money, Walgreens won't do it, Walmart won't do it, nobody will do it.
I'm not Walgreens, I couldn't answer that, but
Is there ever-
it is
is
its
there
own
ever-
commercial.
Has there ever been a box store, anything you can think of, with 60 feet of frontage? Can you think of that anywhere? 500 feet back? It doesn't happen. There's a reason that Roy's wants to build apartments, because nothing else is gonna work unless.
That's
what it does.
You must.
I work construction, I deal with tractor trailers all the time. You cannot get a big rig with turn onto or off of that access road
That's right.
at 60 feet.
I apologize, but I have to disagree with you. This,
It's never been there. I'll
this,
tell you right now, I've stopped traffic for 100 trucks trying to get down stuff like that and watched them struggle for 15 minutes. Good, experienced drivers.
which is exactly why this project would be built in conformance with today's standards that would allow that to
Are you
happen.
still going to be talking about standards in the past? How many people that were commercial
That I can
interest was in this land, since it's been commercial all this while? Has there been any interest?
I don't know, yeah. They own the land, it's theirs,
Has anybody tried
that's
to
up
buy
to
it
them.
from you?
Yeah.
The farm right up the road.
There's a farmer up the road
Monaco.
that wanted to buy it.
Monaco.
But
It hasn't, Mr. Emmerling hasn't tried to sell it.
Right,
He owns it.
right. Just wants to maximize
I
the
know, but
profit.
people look around, I mean, they come
Oh, but no, it's not on the market.
didn't drought own it before.
How long has Emmerling owned that piece of property?
You might know, I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to
So
talk,
that's really only, what, 5 years?
ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to talk, I ask that you have the time to come up to the microphone so that everybody can hear you. I understand that there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions in here, and I agree, I have opinions of it myself. But if we just talk back and forth, we're not going to get anywhere. So Mr. Metzger has the floor right now. If we let him finish, I will gladly listen to everybody 100 times over.
Can we simplify it though, like, we get questions, so like maybe,
Well,
if he's up there, we can raise our
Yeah,
hand.
let him
Yeah.
finish what he's going through, and he has some points that people ask questions, I think he wants to answer.
Yeah, that's up to Mr. Metzger. I cannot speak to that.
Just a couple more points, and should the board allow, we'd be happy to answer any further questions. But there was some discussion tonight. Obviously, a lot of what I just talked about had to do with engineering, a little bit premature, but I wanted to provide some information. We're here for a planning decision. It's a planning decision as to whether this board decides to rezone the property or not. And when planning decisions are made, one tool that they have available to them, it would be the town's comprehensive plan. The town's fathers put together a comprehensive plan that is to be a guide. It's not an absolute Bible, but it's a guide to provide some insight as to how, or what the vision should be for the town. There are various areas within the comprehensive plan that fully support this project. One of which talks about diversity in residential housing types. Now, we've talked a little bit about the fact that, yes, there are some single-family homes associated with this project, but some of it is also multifamily. If you take a look at the town's own comprehensive plan, it shows that the amount of multifamily residential housing options for people that live in the town of Boston is well below the county average. this project would help to reinforce the comprehensive plan in providing those another diverse residential option. Also, the comprehensive plan does discuss the need for, in that particular area, mixed use. As the one gentleman got up and spoke about, there is a desire within the comprehensive plan to provide some diversity in this area. And that ties into the last point that I'd like to make too, where the more, I guess, what you want to refer to, what you might refer to as the harsher uses are further away from the existing residents. The reason we've structured the plan the way we have and changed it, the various times that we've changed it, is in response to concerns that have been raised by residents in the immediate area about certain uses being adjacent to them. Right now, we have a situation where the commercial uses are the most distant from the existing neighborhood, and then you step down into the multifamily use, and then once again step down into something that is exactly the same as what is in the neighboring properties, single-family homes, and then lastly, we've got the buffer, the open space, the permanent open space that would provide the last step down before you get to the existing homes in that area. So I just want to make sure it's clear that we have been responsive. As you saw, as Mr. Hopkins pointed out, it was much more intense from a commercial standpoint initially, and based on the feedback we've gotten, we have stepped it down and made those changes. So I just wanted to touch on those points.
Would you like to answer questions?
I'm happy to.
If you would like to raise your hands, and I hate to do it this way, it would be called upon. Leland, if you would like, you've raised your hand for a long time.
I know, it was starting to get tired.
Yeah.
When we were just talking about the fact that this is a commercially zoned property now, has something changed since the July meeting about what's allowed as far as footage from the entrance to the expressway? Like
No, the zoning classification today is exactly the same as it was in July of this year. Nothing's changed.
So like that, to me, it's been commercial forever, because it's real hard to put in a commercial property location. You can't, how are you gonna put a entrance, all this stuff that we're concerned about, like, why not just drop it down to residential properties? Like, why can't he sell it off as individual pieces of property if he wants to maximize profit? Why do we have to put up a bazillion apartment complexes? Because he wants to continue to roll in the cash? Like, why can't he just divvy up the property and sell it as a single residential piece?
Yeah, I want to make clear, it's zoned commercial. I don't believe Mr. Emerling actually rezoned it to that. I think it was already zoned that.
It's always been
It was
commercial.
done by the town.
Right.
We have at no point, I know someone said we're threatening people with commercial. I don't think at any point we've done that. But ultimately, if this project can't be approved, Mr. Emerling is going to have to consider other options. Those options would have to be based on the existing zoning, which is commercial. So I know we've heard some comments saying, we don't want to see a home. No, and I know you still disagree, but would you?
You're talking backwards.
No, why? Would you say that it should remain vacant
That's
forever?
all, I don't spend a lot of time with, I don't know everybody here, but I hear the same thing from everybody. If it was commercial and it is, which is what I just said, I'm the one that said about a truck stop or something we won't like versus something you might possibly be able to live with.
Right.
That's the common theme I keep
No,
hearing,
we're not
so.
saying that. We can't speak for us. If it was zoned commercial, if it was developed in a manner allowed by commercial, we're not taking a position on behalf of you how do you feel about it. I don't think we've ever done that.
No, I agree.
Our thought process has been that if you live on Meadow Drive, and we understand, Mr. Westcott, your mom, your situation is different because you live here. Our position has been that if you live on Meadow Drive, contiguous to the site, we're pretty confident this would probably be better than if it's developed based on commercial. That's it. But it's not our opinion to form, it's up to you. That's what we thought.
No, because you just said that though. If he doesn't get this zoning, it's his commercial business property. So he would just do whatever he would feel he could do because it's commercial. That isn't exactly what we were just saying.
No, but
This
it was
gentleman-
viewed as if it was a threat like that would be, of course that's what he would do. That's what it's zoned for. The same way as if you owned a lot that was zoned single family, in all likelihood, a house would be built there. It's
You should
okay,
just
it's
then
not.
take the plans back to him and say, hey, you know what? No, not happening. I guess you should commercially, you know, consider the project.
Yeah, I just.
How you gonna develop commercial?
There's a question back here with the person that has their hand raised, right here. Sorry, this person has their hand raised.
We're going with him.
Oh, and
Too long.
I
Too long.
apologize.
Had it up
I
there.
just have a really quick question, because I heard the same statement at the July meeting that I hear now. And that it says we're discussing whether this should be commercial or whether this should be mixed commercial, residential. If that's the case, why are we even proposing this? Why, I mean, all that really does is raises the emotions of people around us. Let's talk instead about commercial versus residential. When you put these pictures in front of us, what do you think that does?
Well, we have to show that.
I understand that, but when you come back and tell us, this is not what we're talking about, we're not talking about this project. What we're talking about is whether this should be commercial or residential, then let's talk commercial or residential. If you're gonna put these pictures in front of us, then we're gonna discuss this as well.
Yeah, we have to show. a
I
concept.
understand that, but it wasn't, Jason, I think you brought up that this is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about this project. We're talking about whether this should be commercial or residential, correct?
Yeah.
Well, yes, but remember, the layout is somewhat important.
So, but my
Can I
point
finish?
is,
The reason I'm saying the layout is somewhat important is, remember, in connection with our request, we're saying, you can see the dark green areas, we're agreeing, and we would be okay with the town board ultimately imposing as a condition, that those 17 acres would be forever green space. So it is relevant. And I think that is part and parcel of the layout.
but then please don't try to silence us when we're expressing our emotions about the project itself.
So I don't think we
That's
can
right.
silence it.
Wouldn't it be
And I
easier-
respect your opinion, that's why we're all
Wouldn't
here.
it be easier for the town, the people, to make a decision based on what Mr. Emmerling would propose as a business? Then we could decide,
I mean,
do we want a truck stop?
Yeah, I want to note, I think the board has made clear that they're not going to vote tonight. And I also want to note, we didn't ask for the hearing to be scheduled tonight. I believe 2 consecutive planning board meetings were scheduled and been canceled,
But if-
one because of
if
weather.
we
Then, I know,
knew-
just let me,
Sean, I think there was 3.
3.
If we knew
Yeah.
the either or,
No, well, let
we could
me,
make
an informed
an
decision.
unbiased opinion.
Yeah, so let me respond to the question. I think the board's,
The gentleman with the Caterpillar jacket has had his hand up for a second then.
I'll respond to
Friends,
that.
Ken Blewa, West Dillon Road. I have friends over in Panama City, Florida, that do a lot of commercial property and everything else. They have multi-dwelling properties on this one street over there, and basically, what did you call a back street between the buildings that went into this big amount of property. These people wanted to put up commercial back there. They said, well, you can't put commercial, it's just a narrow street over there. They approached them with the right price, and they sold the property, and they knocked them down, and they had their property. The same would go over here. The people over here by Meadow Drive over there, they'll approach 1 or 2 property owners, that's all they need to do. Offer them a lot of money, and those people will go, yeah. And they'll say, well, we'll put your house on top of the hill over there, and blah, 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 blah. And then watch out for the back street coming out between the houses when they put another entrance in that road. All they need to do is buy 1 house out, enough property, and you've got your access road.
The single-family homes aren't zoned to allow.
What?
The existing single-family homes on Meadow aren't zoned to allow. I mean, I believe that may have happened somewhere else, but that's not.
To put a road in your site, so that's not a viable option.
So
It would
it's
have to
not-
be rezoned.
It'd have to be a
It would
separate
have to-
rezoning.
Yeah, it would be a completely separate rezoning incident.
Which likely wouldn't be wrong.
But it could happen.
We're doing it. Rich?
What would happen if Roy decided to make those 96 apartment units single dwelling homes?
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to come back, because I think it's following up with your question. I think it's quite clear, the board's not gonna vote tonight. It's quite clear, it's the holidays, and I know everyone has stuff going on, so we'll continue to answer questions, but I wanna know, we're not asking for a decision tonight. We're certainly willing to continue to engage in discussion, meaning, while this is what we'd like today, we're not automatically saying, guys, we're drawing a line in the sand, we can't fix it. So, given that there's not gonna be a decision, what we'd like to do is, again, I know there'll be some new town board members, some that'll be outgoing, and we appreciate their service. We'll continue to engage in those discussions after the new year. So I just wanna make sure everyone knows, we're not asking for a decision tonight, let's continue the discussions. I'm not saying this is the last time we'll talk. You can still answer, we can still ask questions, but the dialogue will continue after the new year.
I have a question.
One of the two Weisses first, their hands were up previously.
I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, I have a question. You know, we had this big meeting in July, we have this meeting tonight. We constantly hear the planning board has turned it down.
They didn't
Well,
turn
the
it down.
planning board hasn't met on this particular.
They haven't met.
Well, okay, on the previous one.
Yeah, the
Yes.
previous one they.
At one of these meetings, these public meetings and that, would it be asking too much if in fact the planning board turns it down again? We can get input from them as to why they turned it down. All we hear is they turned it down and they don't know why. And like, the young lady over there said, you know, if you're not gonna, you know, if the planning board's opinion only counts if you agree with it, why do we have a planning board? So I would like at the next one of these meetings to have somebody, at least one representative of the planning board says, hey, we turned it down from the request to change the zoning, this is why. We don't know why they turned it down. We just know that they turned it down.
Mr. Weiss, I think the previous project, and then it got changed, and the planning board has had it in front of them for 3 months, and they canceled 3 meetings, and didn't get back to the gentleman or the board, either whether they agreed, disagreed, give us any opinion to the board at all, 0, on what they like, don't like, rezoning, nothing. So, we are still waiting for the planning board, and the next board will come in, we'll still be waiting for the planning board to actually look at this project, to get back to the developer and these gentlemen, and the board to make a decision on it, and then the board will go from there. But to have the public meeting is to hear, so the developer and these people can have your input on what they're presenting to the town. So yes, I agree with you on the planning board, they need to look at the project.
We have 3 hands up, ladies always first.
But on every planning board meeting, these projects have been going on since 2012. I followed them all. Every time, their final word, he bought the property commercial, it is his own hardship. End of discussion. That's it.
Sir?
Is this board that we have today gonna vote on this?
No, sir.
They're not. The new board coming in is?
Yeah.
I don't know if the new board is gonna vote on it or not, that's up to the new board. They will be waiting to hear from the planning board.
What about this board? This board's not gonna be voting on it then?
No, this is a public hearing to get your opinion about the project that is in front of you.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter with the planning board, how they vote on it. It's ultimately up to the planning, or up to the town board. If the planning board doesn't approve of it, that has no bearing on a project.
Why have a planning
That
board?
is-
Well, I'm just telling you from experience in this town and the development that's gone in this town where the planning board has voted negative, or voted against projects, where the town board has voted for them. So,
Yes, the town board would have final
Final
say
say.
over whether, whether.
so no matter what the planning board says, or the recommendations, you could always overrule the planning board and vote the
It
way
is
you want.
advised that we follow what the planning board.
Not always, Mr. Martin, you don't always follow it.
No,
No, but I'm
we'd
saying,
like an opinion from
it's
them.
advised, and we can't vote until we have an opinion. That is what the town says.
And
Okay,
it's a prerequisite that the planning board issue a new recommendation before this board could vote.
Right.
Right, a yes or no.
We shouldn't be placing a vote until we have that recommendation. Whether we agree with it or disagree with it is a different point altogether.
Right.
But we shouldn't vote, it would be, against the town code to vote without the recommendation from the planning board.
but even in a majority of a planning board vote of no, you guys can override them and vote whatever way you want.
Hypothetically, yes.
Right,
It's ridiculous.
Because they are advisory.
right.
So I would just like to point that out to Marty, saying well, if they would just do something about it. They have been, and they've said no. I've talked to a couple of.
No, stop. They said no against the other project,
Right.
we resubmitted another
I talked to a
project.
couple of the planning board
by-
members, and they don't want this one either.
Well,
And you
but
know
wait,
that
they
that's
said
why-
they'll
that's
know,
why they
but they
wouldn't-
haven't said this to the
With all
board.
the shenanigans that happened with our board, I'm glad that they wouldn't give you an answer before this.
If they give me an answer, great, yes or no, I don't know. But even if they
Well,
gave me
my
an
point,
answer,
what
I would
I'm saying
still,
is,
the board would still have to discuss
what
it.
Roger's saying is, even when the planning board votes no, you guys have come in and just, oh, well, we don't care if they voted no or not, we're voting yes.
That's an advisory
That's
board.
having a planning.
But the planning board has
hear what
yet
the
even,
constituents
wait,
I wish
as an
I would've
advisory
said this.
board,
Oh,
they
wait a
have yet
minute.
to even give it a decision, yes or no. So this board then could take a look at it with the engineers we hired and with the attorneys that we hired for this.
The planning board voted no on this one.
No, they haven't.
No, they haven't.
Okay, the one before this, where okay, so you took 3 houses away. They voted no before, they're gonna vote no again. And so the question from the
But that's-
residents
that
is
is
if the
speculative.
planning board votes no, why would the board then
But you're
forget
assuming all
about
that.
that and vote yes?
But you're assuming that, man.
I'm not assuming anything, I've watched it happen.
No, you're assuming the board will if they vote no, just
But I mean,
vote for the project.
it will be,
What?
it'll be a new,
No, what
essentially a
I'm
new board
saying
except for
is,
Jason.
you're not listening to what the constituents are saying. Marty. What
I
they're
am.
saying is that they expect the board to agree with the planning board, because the whole purpose of a planning board is to look at a project like this and decide if it's right for the town. If the planning board then says, no, we don't think this is right for the town, we are gonna say no, and then the board comes in and says, we don't really care what the planning board says, we're voting yes, that's what they're saying. It's ridiculous. And if the planning board decided to cancel a few meetings, because every single time they vote no, it's
It's
thrown
not,
in their
no,
face.
it's not every single time they vote no, man.
Okay, I'm,
95%?
yeah,
Not
thank you.
even 95%, sir.
And with all of the shenanigans that were going on with our town board as it was, I would have, as a planning board member, I would have wanted to cancel that vote for a while as well. I wouldn't have wanted to give you guys an answer if I knew that those 2 people that aren't up there with me. Sorry, I'm Ran.
Just,
I thought you were being very nice.
You know what I was thinking though, right?
Yeah, we all know.
But just, Lila, just so I'm understanding, so from what I'm hearing between, the dialogue between you and the supervisor.
Yeah.
So you're, the planning board had advised not, was essentially a no. We all are in agreement of that. That was an agreement of a no for the rezoning. If we say no, that remains commercial. It's not a no to the project
Right, that's
overall.
fine.
Oh, I'm just
They're
making sure you
saying let
understand. I
it
just-
stay commercial.
Correct, that's it. Correct, so that would remain
Let
commercial
them try
property,
and put a
commercial
hotel
development.
up there, or a truck stop, or, whatever the plan.
I just,
What I'm saying, going forward, I think that it should be considered, going forward, if our planning board in the town, we have this group of citizens that come together and use time and energy to come to this decision for the best interest of everybody in the town. That's when the town board should really be listening to the planning board. And that's the residents' concern, is that we've seen it over and over, where the town board says, no, this is a bad idea, and then the board members and their friends or whatever happens decide that they are going to go ahead and vote yes anyway. And so that's what the residents are worried about. And I think going forward, with our new board coming in, I think that it's gonna be something that, you need to consider heavily is, the next supervisor. Because the people are saying, what is the point of a planning board if you guys aren't gonna listen to them?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I hear you, but that goes back to my initial statement of, everybody here is saying no, as did the planning board. That means the project remains commercial, not, no residential.
What they're saying is the planning board voted no, you're voting no. That's what they expect.
I understand, that's what I just said. So if I, at this very moment, as a hypothetical playing this out, if we listened right now, there's 3 people here, which constitutes a quorum by state law.
Sure,
The 3 of us vote no right this very moment.
it stays commercial.
It stays commercial, which means Walgreens, truck stop, whatever, commercial
We'll take our
development.
chances.
Just,
You're
so,
the residents, they're saying, we'll take our chances with that.
I know, but I'm just
But
saying, I just
that,
want
but
to
that
make
also
sure.
means that we could be proposed another something that might.
That is absolutely correct.
Right.
So it's not the end all be all.
Absolutely correct.
No,
Is there-
by any means.
Is there a possibility that instead of the apartments, there could be some very nice homes built in that area?
No
I think
commercial at all?
That's what you just said, there's a possibility
it's more
about it.
agreeable.
We would have to rezone to do that.
Right, so that would mean,
Correct.
yes, that would mean, yes,
But what are we about
That would go against what,
That would go against
that would go against what the planning board, by the way,
Plans
did.
that eliminate the hotel and the
That's right.
96 apartment complexes.
Right, but that's the next.
Draw up the next plans and then maybe we'll consider a
Well,
yes.
hold on, actually apartments are residential.
Correct.
Okay, so the people in town are saying no more apartments. You guys are
I
killing our
understand,
property values.
but if I, right, I understand, but if it's rezoned as residential, the apartments become a feasibility,
But
that
if
then
he
goes
would-
back to the
But if he
planning.
would agree.
It goes back to the planning board that can say no.
And then you guys start over.
Many of these people would.
But then we're going exactly against what the planning board wanted. So we're saying we want to follow the planning board, but
No,
we
we're
don't.
not, because we don't know what the planning board has decided, whatever else. 95% of the residents in this community would rather see residential homes than apartment houses.
Right.
And they certainly don't want to see a motel or a gas station, because we already have enough gas stations in town and stuff. 95% of the people, and I'm not speaking for them, but I think most of them would rather see residential homes in here. And if they came back with some other type of idea of saying, listen, forget the apartment houses, forget the motel, because that's phase 3 and it's never going to happen. And if you, no, I just said, listen, there's motels in Springfield and there's motels in Amherst. Nobody's gonna stop in Boston and fill up a freaking motel
I
with
think when the
45
planning
homes.
board, I think when the planning board has their meeting, what I suggest to people
It's
is
not
because
gonna ever happen.
normal people,
But
normally
if they
people don't go.
decided that
is that
there
you
was
go
some
to the planning board
residential
meeting
homes in that
and just
area,
be
you
able
would
to go
see
to-
more of the
discuss it.
residents in this community agreeing to that happening. That's all I'm saying.
The gentleman in the John Deere had his hand raised a while ago.
Yeah, I've got a question regarding the green space and this, forever. What is forever?
All we mean by that, sir, is so the areas, and I don't know if you can.
Oh, I
see-
know where the place is, but
Yeah, so-
in theory, could Royce sell that off?
No, so what we're saying we would agree to do is if the town board approved it, and if the town board put the condition that has to be permanent open space, which we're proposing, we would then protect it by going to the Erie County Clerk's office and recording a document that would need to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney's office saying it can never be developed. So in theory, you could sell it to someone, but who would buy it? You can't do anything with it. So that's how we go to it. That's not uncommon, that's done all the time.
Sir?
You're forgetting about all our volunteers. We've got a crack volunteer